The Chicago skyline was a blanket of glittering diamonds beneath us, but I couldn't keep my eyes off Olivia. She looked breathtaking in that deep red dress, the candlelight hitting her high cheekbones just right. This was it. 3 years of marriage, and tonight was my statement that she deserved the absolute best. I had drained my entire personal savings account, ignoring every financial warning sign, just to secure this corner table at Lumiere. "Everything looks perfect, Liam," Olivia said, her voice soft, but her smile didn't quite reach those expressive eyes I adored. She adjusted the napkin in her lap, tapping her French manicured nails rhythmically against the crisp white linen. "Not just perfect, Liv," I teased gently, reaching across the table to cover her trembling hand with mine. "We're celebrating us. I know things have been stressful lately, but we made it. 3 years. 3 years," she agreed, smoothly sliding her hand away under the pretense of picking up her champagne flute. "It's gone by fast. It's just a lot to process. Are you okay? You've been quiet all night." "I'm fine, Liam. Just tired from work." Olivia didn't drink. She took a tiny, polite sip, her attention already drifting back to her phone resting face down beside her plate. The screen lit up, *flash*, a notification glowing against the wood. It was another text message from someone listed simply as TK. "TK again?" I tried to keep my tone light, but my chest tightened. "Is that your new team lead at the firm? They're really keeping you on a short leash, even on our anniversary." She grabbed the phone with sudden urgency, tapping a quick response. "Oh, Tyler King? Yeah. We're in the middle of finalizing a massive restructuring pitch for a new client. It's high-stakes stuff, Liam. The whole integration depends on my creative direction. He needs answers immediately." "It's 9 o'clock on our anniversary, Liv," I said, a faint trace of hurt slipping into my voice. "Can't Tyler King wait 2 hours? You deserve to be present for tonight." Olivia set her phone back down, this time face up. "The corporate world doesn't pause for dinners, Liam. He trusts me with this expansion, and I need to deliver. You wouldn't really understand how fast things move at this level. You just handle small graphic design orders for local shops." The casual dismissal cut deep, but I swallowed the insult. I wasn't going to let bitterness ruin this evening. Not when I had planned every second of it. I reached into my jacket pocket, my fingers wrapping around the cool, heavy silver of the bracelet I had spent 3 weeks handcrafting in my spare time. "You know, Liv, things are actually about to change for us, too." I began, my voice soft with anticipation. "My design studio is finally gaining traction, and..." Before I could finish, the phone flashed again. "TK, meeting confirmed for tonight." Olivia didn't just reply this time. She read the message and let out a faint, breathless laugh. "Something funny?" I asked, my voice turning tight. Olivia looked up, startled, as if she had suddenly remembered I was sitting across from her. She locked her screen instantly and set the crystal champagne glass down with a precise, chilling clink. The soft smile vanished from her face, replaced by her expression that was entirely professional, cold, and detached. "Liam," she said, her tone flat. "Actually, I'm glad you brought up changes. Because we need to make one." She reached beneath her seat, pulling out a thick, heavy manila envelope from her designer bag. She didn't hesitate. She slid the envelope directly across the candlelit table, letting it rest beside my untouched plate. "What's this?" I asked, my pulse suddenly racing in my ears. "A contract?" "Open it," Olivia stated calmly. My fingers shook as I unsealed the top clasp and pulled out the crisp white stack of legal papers. The bold heading on the top document slammed into me like a physical blow. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." "Divorce?" I gasped, the air completely leaving my lungs. "Liv, what is this? Is this a joke?" "It's not a joke, Liam. I'm serving you," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "Inside you'll also find a cease and desist letter regarding my new position at King Capital. It takes effect immediately." "Cease and desist?" I stammered, looking from the papers to her face. "What are you talking about? We're married. I drained my entire bank account tonight just to bring you here." "And that's the exact problem, Liam," Olivia snapped, leaning forward, her eyes cold and sharp. "Look at you. You spent everything you had just to afford one dinner at a rooftop restaurant to pretend we're something we're not. You're content with a small, ordinary, mediocre life. You're satisfied running a tiny studio, living paycheck to paycheck, thinking that's enough. I did this for you, I yelled softly, tears stinging the corners of my eyes. Because I love you. Love doesn't pay for the life I want, she spat back. Tyler King can give me status. He can give me power, equity, and a position at the top of King Capital. I am moving on, Liam. I can no longer anchor myself to a man who is comfortable staying at the bottom. She stood up, pulling her coat around her shoulders without looking at the silver bracelet sitting forgotten on the tablecloth. Don't contact me, Olivia said, her final words dropping like ice. My lawyers will handle the rest. I sat frozen as she walked away, holding the papers that destroyed my world, completely unaware that the small, ordinary man she just dumped was the sole heir to the very hedge fund buying King Capital. The sound of zipper teeth pulling tight echoed through our bedroom like a slow execution. I stood in the doorway, staring at the empty hangers rattling in the closet. You don't have to pack everything tonight, Olivia, I said, my voice raspy and thin. It's midnight. Olivia didn't look at me. She yanked a silk blouse from a drawer, folding it into the designer leather suitcase. The one I'd maxed out my credit card to buy her for her birthday last year. Tyler's driver is waiting downstairs, Liam, she said neutrally. I'm not leaving anything behind to give you an excuse to contact me. 3 years, I whispered, leaning against the doorframe as my chest burned. And you walk out in 3 hours. I told you at dinner, Liam, she replied, zipping the bag shut with a sharp tug. Don't make this pathetic. The apartment is yours until the lease ends. Goodbye. She rolled the bag past me, her perfume lingering in the air like a ghost. The front door clicked shut. Silence hit the room like a physical weight. The next morning at my small design studio, I sat staring at a blank computer screen. My head pounded, and every breath felt heavy. Liam. I jerked my head up. Sarah Chun, my lead designer and closest coworker, was standing by my desk holding 2 paper coffee cups. She set one down beside my mouse, her dark eyes filled with genuine concern. You look terrible, Sarah said softly, pulling up a chair. I heard about the restaurant last night. Did something happen with Olivia? She served me divorce papers at the dinner table, Sarah, I said, leaning back and rubbing my face. And then she walked out. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. What? Liam, no. You did everything for her. Apparently doing everything wasn't enough, I said with a bitter laugh. She joined King Capital. She said I was too ordinary, that I didn't have enough drive for the life she wanted. That's insane, Sarah said angrily. You build custom branding from scratch, you work 16-hour days, and you paid for her master's degree. How can she call you ordinary? Because Tyler King offered her status, I muttered, looking at the dark coffee. I'm just a guy with a small studio. I have a choice, Sarah. I can sit here, collapse, and let her destroy me, or I can figure out what's actually happening. If you need anything, I'm here, Liam, Sarah said earnestly, resting a hand on my shoulder. Don't let her erase your worth. By 6 in the evening, I was back at the empty apartment. I couldn't stand looking at the living room, so I walked into Olivia's small study nook. Her desk was cleared, except for a few stray papers jammed into the back of a drawer. I pulled the bottom drawer open to check for any leftover tax files. Deep in the back, behind a stack of old magazines, my hand hit something hard. A black leather-bound notebook. I pulled it out. It was Olivia's personal journal. I shouldn't have opened it, but my thumb flipped the pages anyway. The entries from 3 months ago jumped out at me, written in her neat, precise handwriting. Asterisk May 14th. Tyler took me out to private dining after the interview. He promised me the senior director role at King Capital if I align with him on the new fund expansion. Liam thinks I'm working late at the local agency. He has no idea. Asterisk June 2nd. Tyler bought me the Cartier watch. He laughed when I told him Liam works 60 hours a week for small clients. Liam is so gullible. He thinks we're building a future, but he's just holding me back. Tyler gives me real power. Asterisk. The journal slipped from my fingers, hitting the floorboards. Tears burned my eyes. but the sadness evaporated instantly, replaced by a cold, sharp rage. It wasn't just ambition. It was a calculated, manipulative game. She had cheated on me, mocked my hard work, and used my devotion as a safety net while setting up her leap to Tyler King. I stood up and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window looking out over the city lights. For 5 years, I had cut ties with my family. I had refused my inheritance, dropped my real last name, and started from zero because I wanted to prove I could build a life on my own merit. I wanted genuine love, not people using me for money. But Olivia had used me anyway and treated me like dirt because she thought I was powerless. I pulled my personal phone from my pocket. My thumb hovered over a contact number I hadn't dialed in half a decade. I pressed call. It rang twice before a deep, authoritative voice answered. Liam. Hello, father, I said, my voice steady and deadly calm. A heavy pause echoed over the line. I didn't expect to hear from you, son. You swore you'd never call Robert Vance unless you were ready to take your place. I'm ready, Dad, I said, staring at my reflection in the dark window glass. Tell me about King Capital. My father let out a quiet, knowing chuckle. King Capital? Their parent entity has been over-leveraged for 6 months, Liam. My firm, Vance Global, just finalized the buyout agreement. I own 90% of their debt, as of 5 o'clock today. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. I want full executive control of the acquisition, Dad. Immediately. It's yours, son. Welcome home. I sat on a cold wooden bench in the middle of Grant Park, watching the Chicago skyline light up as dusk settled over the city. A chilly autumn breeze whistled through the trees, but I barely felt it. My phone felt heavy in my hand, the screen displaying a single unsaved contact number that I had tried to erase from my memory 5 years ago. My heart pounded violently against my ribs. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and tapped the call button. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Robert Vance. A voice answered, deep, commanding, and utterly devoid of warmth. It was the same cold, businesslike tone that had terrified Fortune 500 executives for decades. Dad, I said, my voice cutting through the traffic hum in the background. A sharp pause echoed across the line. The sound of rustling papers on his end stopped instantly. Liam? Is that really you? It's me, I replied, gripping the edge of the wooden bench until my knuckles turned white. You haven't called this line in 5 years, Robert said, his tone regaining its sharp edge. You swore you would build a life without my money or my name. You wanted to play the self-made artist in your little graphic studio. Why are you calling me now? Because I was wrong about how the world works, Dad, I said, a bitter edge slipping into my words. I thought if I worked hard, lived modestly, and loved someone with everything I had, it would be enough. What happened? His voice softened slightly, a hint of genuine concern breaking through the executive armor. Olivia served me with divorce papers 2 hours ago, I confessed, looking up at the towering glass skyscrapers. At our 3rd anniversary dinner, she told me I was too small, too ordinary, and that she couldn't waste her life with a man who wasn't built for power. Silence hung over the line for 3 long seconds. When Robert spoke again, his tone had shifted entirely from distant CEO to a terrifying, protective fury. She did what? He whispered, each word dripping with venom. That ungrateful girl? After everything you sacrificed to keep your relationship simple for her? She didn't just walk out, Dad. I continued, pushing the blade deeper. She took a senior position at King Capital. She's sleeping with their senior vice president, Tyler King. They used my hard work as a safety net while they plotted to step over me. Suddenly, a low, dark laugh echoed through the speaker. It was a cold sound that made the hairs on my neck stand up. Did you say King Capital? Robert asked, his laughter fading into a smooth, predatory murmur. And Tyler King? I frowned, caught off guard by his reaction. Yes. Why? Liam, do you know who actually funds King Capital's expansion projects? Robert asked smoothly. Do you know who holds 90% of their distressed corporate debt after their disastrous quarterly audit last month? My breath hitched in my throat as the realization clicked into place. Vance Global. Vance Global. Robert confirmed with quiet authority. King Capital is a puppet firm, Liam. Tyler King thinks he's playing master of the universe, but he's running a company that operates entirely on my financial mercy. They are scheduled for a mandatory structural review next Monday morning before we finalize their debt restructuring. They don't know who owns their debt, do they? I asked, a dangerous spark lighting up inside my chest. They only know us as an anonymous holding board, Robert said firmly. I was planning on sending a junior compliance officer to handle the review. But now, I am personally going to oversee the entire merger audit. And you, my son, are going to sit at the head of that boardroom table. I stood up from the park bench, my hands steadying as a cold, calculating calm washed over me. The pain, the humiliation at the restaurant, the pathetic tears, all of it vanished. I was done being the victim of someone else's ruthless ambition. When do I start? I asked, my voice deadly quiet. Come home tonight, Liam, Robert commanded gently. Drop the middle-class alias. Put on a proper suit. Tomorrow morning, you step back into your real life as the sole heir to Vance Global. We will give your wife and her new lover the exact corporate lesson they deserve. Olivia said I was too ordinary for the life she wanted. I said, looking at my reflection in the dark glass of a nearby light pole. I want to be there when she realizes who I actually am. Oh, you will be Liam, Robert said, a cruel satisfaction lacing his words. Tyler King will hand over his keys, and your wife will realize she threw away an empire for a middle management lie. I'll have my driver pick you up in 20 minutes. I'll be ready, Dad, I said, ending the call. I slid the phone into my pocket and looked up at the sparkling city lights above me. For years, I had hidden my true identity, believing that humility was a virtue and that love could survive without power. Olivia had looked at my simplicity and seen weakness. She had stepped on my heart to climb a ladder that my family built. I smiled faintly, stepping toward the street to wait for the car. The quiet, ordinary Liam was dead. It was time for Olivia to meet Vance. You need to fix these alignment parameters right now, Sarah. Olivia's voice cut across the conference room like a whip. If King Capital loses even 0.5% on this slide deck, I'll make sure your small studio never gets another corporate contract. I stood just outside the glass doors of King Capital's 9th-floor suite, listening to my former wife bark orders. Beside her, Tyler King leaned against the polished oak table, smirk firmly in place, twirling a high-end fountain pen between his fingers. I'm following the original template you approved yesterday, Olivia, Sarah replied, keeping her voice strictly professional despite the tension in her shoulders. If we alter these asset valuations now, it distorts the debt-to-equity ratio before the Vance Global review. I don't care about your technicalities, Tyler chimed in, his tone dripping with condescension. Olivia is running point on creative integration. When she tells you to adjust the deck to make our quarterly growth look stronger, you do it. You work for us now, Sarah. Act like it. I work for Liam's studio. Actually, Sarah said firmly, holding her head high. We were brought in as independent contractors for this transition. Tyler let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Liam? That middle management loser who couldn't even keep his wife. Don't cite his name in my boardroom. He's obsolete, and frankly, so is his little firm if you don't adjust those numbers. Olivia crossed her arms, a triumphant smile flashing across her face. Listen to Tyler, Sarah. Liam was comfortable playing small. Tyler and I operate at the top. When Vance Global signs off on our debt restructuring tomorrow morning, Tyler becomes senior managing partner, and I get full equity. Don't let Liam's pathetic trajectory ruin your career. Sarah didn't argue further. She simply gathered her iPad, nodded once, and walked out of the suite. I stepped back into the shadow of the structural pillar as the glass doors slid shut behind her. Once Sarah reached the elevator bank, I walked over to join her. How bad was it? I asked quietly. Sarah jumped slightly, then let out a heavy breath when she saw me. Liam, what are you doing in the building? If Olivia sees you here, I have a meeting on the executive floor later, I said, offering a calm, reassuring smile. Did they give you a hard time? They're insufferable, Sarah whispered, shaking her head in frustration. Olivia is acting like she owns the entire firm already. She and Tyler are forcing us to inflate the projected yields on the deck for tomorrow's audit. They think Vance Global's representative is just some naive trust fund proxy who will sign whatever they put in front of him. They really believe this bailout is guaranteed, don't they? I asked. They're utterly convinced, Sarah said. Tyler was boasting in the hallway earlier about how King Capital is going to absorb Vance Global's liquidity. But Liam, I checked the market fluctuations 20 minutes ago. King Capital's short-term commercial paper is crashing. If Vance Global doesn't buy out their debt by noon tomorrow, King Capital goes into immediate insolvency. Insolvency? I repeated, my eyes narrowing. So they're running on borrowed time. Literally, Sarah confirmed. They desperately need this bailout to survive the week, yet they're treating everyone like trash. They think they're untouchable because they don't know who Vance Global is sending to lead the review. They think Vance Global is just a silent shark? I murmured. Exactly, Sarah said, looking at me curiously. Why do you ask? You look completely unbothered by all of this. Because I know how sharks feed, Sarah, I replied softly, pressing the down button for her elevator. Go back to our studio. Don't stress about their threats. Whatever changes they demand on that deck, leave them exactly as they want them. Are you sure? Sarah asked, frowning. If the numbers don't match the audit, Tyler will blame our studio. Let him try, I said, a cold, steady conviction settling over me. Tomorrow morning, every single lie they've written down will be read out loud in front of the entire board. The elevator doors chimed and slid open. Sarah stepped inside, looking at me with newfound respect and a hint of confusion. You've changed, Liam. Since the night she left, you seem different. I just stopped pretending to be small, Sarah, I said as the doors began to close. See you at the office later. I turned away from the elevators and walked toward the private executive lift at the end of the hall. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed my father's direct line. Is everything in place for tomorrow, Liam? Robert answered on the second ring. They just finished altering the financial projections on the merger deck, Dad, I said, watching my reflection in the dark tinted glass of the executive lift. They think they're playing us for fools. They have no idea that King Capital stock is collapsing underneath them. Arrogance is always the precursor to a fall, my father said smoothly over the line. Our legal team has locked down 90% of their credit lines. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., when you walk into that boardroom, you won't just be reviewing a debt merger. You will be holding their entire existence in your hands. I'll be ready, I said. Let them celebrate tonight. Tomorrow, the bill comes due. The glass doors of the main conference room at Vance Global swung open smoothly. I sat at the head of the obsidian table, impeccably tailored and in charcoal suit, my father sitting beside me with his hands folded. Olivia and Tyler walked in, laughing softly together, completely oblivious to what awaited them. They were holding polished leather binders containing their inflated presentation decks. Good morning, gentlemen, Tyler said, smoothing his jacket as he stepped toward the table. We are thrilled to finalize this debt restructuring with Vance Global today. I assure you, he froze mid-sentence. Olivia, who had been adjusting her tablet, raised her eyes and met mine. The color drained from her face in an instant, her breath catching visibly in her throat. Liam, she whispered, her voice cracking under the silence of the room. What are you doing here? Tyler frowned, looking between Olivia and me in mounting confusion. Liam? As in your ex-husband? Why on earth is a low-level graphic designer sitting in Vance Global's executive boardroom? I asked him to sit there, Mr. King, my father said, his deep voice carrying a lethal, calm weight that instantly silenced the room. Tyler smirked, though a drop of sweat glinted at his temple. Look, sir, I don't know what kind of stunt this little designer is pulling, but he doesn't belong here. We are here to meet with the managing partner of Vance Global to approve our debt consolidation. You are looking at the managing partner, Tyler, I said, leaning back in my chair, resting my arms calmly on the table. Olivia gasped, taking a step backward. Liam, no. That's impossible. You run a small, struggling design studio. You lived off paycheck to paycheck, because I chose to build a life on my own merit, Olivia, I replied, meeting her wide, panicked eyes directly. I wanted someone who loved me for who I was, not for my family's fortune. So I hid my real name. But you didn't want a partner. You wanted status, and you stepped on me to get it. Your name, Olivia stammered, her hands trembling so violently she dropped her binder onto the carpet. Liam Vance. Precisely, my father interjected, standing up from his chair. Liam Vance, my son, and the sole heir to everything Vance Global owns. Tyler's smug demeanor shattered completely. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Wait, Mr. Vance, please. There's been a massive misunderstanding. The merger deck you forced your contractors to falsify yesterday? I interrupted smoothly, pulling up a digital file on the central glass screen. The one where you inflated your projected growth metrics by 30% to cover up your firm's impending insolvency? Tyler turned pale, looking frantically at Olivia. You said your ex-husband was a nobody. You said he had zero leverage. I didn't know. Olivia pleaded, rushing toward the edge of the table, her voice desperate and tight. Liam, please. Look at me. I was confused. Tyler manipulated me. He promised me things, but I realized I made a mistake. We spent 3 years together, Liam. You loved me. I loved the woman I thought you were. I said quietly, my voice utterly devoid of anger. But the woman who served me divorce papers at our anniversary dinner to run off with a fraud isn't someone I know. Liam, please. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks as she reached out toward me. We can fix this. I'll leave King Capital today. I'll throw away the divorce papers. Just help us. It's too late for that, Olivia, I said softly. My father pressed a button on his console, illuminating the primary contract document on the screen. As of 8 a.m. this morning, Vance Global officially rejected King Capital's debt restructuring petition. Furthermore, under Section 4 of our original loan agreement, we are calling in your outstanding credit lines immediately. Tyler stumbled back against the glass wall, his hands shaking. Immediately? That's $50 million. King Capital will be bankrupt by noon. Then I suggest you start liquidating your personal assets, Mr. King, my father replied coldly. Security will escort you both out of the building. 2 heavy security officers stepped through the glass doors, placing themselves directly behind Tyler and Olivia. Liam, don't do this to me, Olivia sobbed, her voice ringing out across the quiet floor as the guards took her by the arm. You're the billionaire heir. You had everything, and you never told me. I offered you a real life, Olivia, I said, standing up to look down at her one last time. You traded an empire for a middle management lie. Tyler looked broken, staring at the floor in utter defeat as he was led away. Olivia kept looking back at me, her eyes filled with a horrific, devastating realization that she had thrown away the exact wealth, power, and security she had sacrificed her integrity to find. As the heavy glass doors clicked shut behind them, the room fell completely silent. The heavy weight that had rested on my chest for days, the pain, the doubt, the humiliation, vanished entirely. How do you feel, son? My father asked, resting a warm, heavy hand on my shoulder. I looked out through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows at the massive Chicago skyline below us, feeling the cold morning sun warming my face. I feel like myself again, Dad, I replied with a quiet, steady smile. Let's get back to work. The mid-afternoon sun reflected off the polished marble of the Vance Global headquarters as I stepped out into the crisp autumn air. 3 weeks had passed since the boardroom meeting. King Capital was officially in bankruptcy proceedings, and federal investigators had already begun freezing Tyler King's assets over widespread corporate embezzlement charges. Liam, I stopped near the Fountain Plaza as a fragile, desperate voice called my name. I turned to see Olivia rushing toward me from behind the limestone pillars. Her designer coat was wrinkled, her eyes swollen and bloodshot, devoid of the cold confidence she had worn at our anniversary dinner. Olivia, I said calmly, slipping my hands into my jacket pockets. You shouldn't be here. Security can escort you off the property. Please, Liam, just give me 5 minutes, she begged, her voice trembling violently as she reached out, stopping just short of touching my sleeve. I've been waiting out here for hours. I didn't know where else to go. We have nothing left to discuss, I replied, my voice quiet and even. The divorce proceedings are being handled by the firm's legal team. I don't care about the divorce, Liam. Tears streamed down her cheeks, smearing her makeup. I made a terrible mistake. Tyler lied to me about everything. He was using me to cover up his accounting fraud. I lost my job, my apartment, everything. I was blind, Liam. I lost my way. You didn't lose your way, Olivia, I said softly, looking at her with a heavy, melancholic sense of clarity. You knew exactly where you were going. You just didn't expect the path you chose to crumble underneath you. I was stupid, she sobbed, taking a step closer. I forgot who you were, how kind you are, how deeply you loved me. We spent 3 years building a life together. You can forgive me, can't you? We can start over. You don't even have to use your family's money. I'll go back to a small life with you. Just take me back. Start over? I asked, a sad, faint smile touching my lips. Olivia, you didn't want the small life when you thought I was ordinary, and you only want me now because you know I'm a Vance. That isn't love. That's survival. She froze, her lips parting as fresh tears spilled over her lashes. Liam, please. I reached into my inner coat pocket and pulled out a single white envelope. I held it out toward her. What's this? She asked, her hands shaking as she took it from me. It's a settlement check. I explained clearly. I calculated the exact market value of the jewelry, clothes, and personal items you left behind at the apartment when you walked out with Tyler. It's $85,000. She looked at the check in shock, then back up at my face. You're giving me money? It's not a gift, Olivia, I said, meeting her gaze one last time. It's a clean break. Use that money to pay off your personal debts, rent a modest place, and rebuild your life honestly. Don't manipulate people for status. Work for what you want. Liam, she whispered, her voice choking on a sob. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me, didn't I? Goodbye, Olivia, I said quietly. I turned away and walked down the marble steps, leaving her standing alone in the plaza. The lingering ache in my chest was gone, replaced by a deep, immovable sense of peace and closure. An hour later, I pushed open the glass doors of my design studio. The space was bright, filled with the hum of computers and chatter. Sarah Chun was standing near the central drafting table, unrolling a large architecture blueprint across the surface. There you are, Sarah said, smiling brightly as I walked over. I was wondering when the new CEO of Vance Global would find time for us common folk. I told you, Sarah. I laughed, pulling up a stool beside her table. I'm not running Vance Global. My father is handling the corporate portfolio. I'm staying right here, building what matters to me. Well, then take a look at this, Sarah said, tapping the blue paper with her pen. These are the expansion blueprints for the new independent media firm. For editing bays, an open-concept design floor, and state-of-the-art rendering units. I leaned over the plans, studying the clean lines and ambitious structure. This looks incredible, Sarah. Fully funded by our studio's earnings and a direct venture loan from my father. Your dad came by earlier, you know, Sarah mentioned, her eyes warm with respect. He looked at these blueprints and told me he's never been prouder of you. He said you built something real out of nothing. He said that, I asked, feeling a genuine warmth rise in my chest. Word for word, Sarah confirmed, hand on her hip. So, partner, are we ready to sign off on the construction contracts and make this official? I picked up a pen from the desk, looking at the blueprint that represented my true future. A future earned through integrity, resilience, and genuine passion. Let's sign it, Sarah, I said, bringing the pen down on the document with absolute certainty. It's time to build.